All right. We are back with the Kathryn For Real podcast. And I am super, super excited today to have Brian Gaulke on the show. Brian is a people problem solver. And what he does is he decodes facial features. So I can't wait to talk to him about this. But he wanted me to make sure before we even got started, and he said he's going to say it a bunch of times throughout our interview, is that anybody can do this. This is a
Mhm.
learned skill. It's not like, something that you're born with, you learn it. And he says that he learned this because he was an introverted extrovert, right? And so, okay, I'm going to get right into it. How you doing,
Sure.
Brian?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
Good. Hanging in there in Southern California.
Yes.
So, okay, tell me how this came about. You said you worked at a help desk.
Yes.
And then you went on to be vice president of sales.
Right. So I'm an introvert by nature. So as a kid, I always picked up books. I felt like I missed that day at school where people taught you how to interact with others. So I had friends, but I kind of felt like I didn't know how to make friends, if that makes any sense. And I would always pick jobs that people had to come to me, bouncer, bartender, retail sales, you name it. So when I went into corporate America, what made sense? Oh, well, go into help desk because then people have to come to you. But I realized that's a very small way to live life. And so I started picking up more books and I hated reading in school because I had to do so much of it. But when I started reading personal development, I had a really good boss named Mark Turner who he included us in things like we went to Zig Ziglar's 70th birthday and things of that nature. And so when I got into self development, I loved it. And I picked up a book. I always had body language books because I always found that kind of fascinating. But then different books would enter my life. Joe Navarro's You Say More Than You Think, or I'm sorry, Joe Navarro's What Everybody Is Saying. I kept picking up books on body language. But a friend came into town and she said, "Hey, let's go to dinner." And I'm like, "Okay." I show up to the restaurant. She doesn't show. I'm like, "Oh, here we go." And she was in town for a trade show. She's like, "Change of plans. You need to come over here. You got to meet this guy." I'm like, "No, I'm at the restaurant. I'm going to stay," because this was before Uber and I don't drink and drive. So I was like, "Nope, nope. I already ordered a glass of wine. I'm staying." She's like, "No, you need to come meet this guy." I'm like, "All right, fine." She convinced me to go over there, but I went begrudgingly because I'm like, "Why do I need to meet this guy?" And she goes, "Well, he reads faces." I'm like, "I've never heard of this. I got bookshelves full of stuff, how to win friends and influence people, you name it. There's no way this can be real." So I went to go prove that the guy was a fraud. So I went in, just guns ready. Okay, he's going to say things like, "Oh, you've had a hard time in life," or somebody whose name starts with M. The same things, they're called Barnum statements. And that is something that's so generic it can apply to a majority of the population. And so I sat down, arms crossed, and we all sat down at dinner, and he dissected everyone to a T, including me, without saying a word. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, what is this?" And I was listening. I thought, okay, whatever he says to person number one, person number two, I'm going to listen and see, does he say the same thing if they have the same feature? I thought, I'm going to bust this guy for sure. And he went through it, and I was like, wow, okay. So I was curious. I thought, okay, I'm still skeptical, but I'll buy his book. And I bought the book, and he said, "Well, I offer training." And I live in Dallas, Texas. He was in Fort Worth. So I would drive from Dallas to Fort Worth twice a month, 45 minutes each way to spend an hour in group coaching with people. And it landed for me naturally. It just made sense. Like, to give an analogy, I don't think I've ever talked about this on a podcast, but I am like the ultimate white guy dancer, right? Like, I'm not a good thing. I didn't want to do it, but somebody introduced me to salsa. And once you have a form of structure that you can learn things, it makes it fun. And that's kind of what this was like. It was learning steps to understand other people. And then when I got to meet people, it was fun to meet them because I was learning more about them and I didn't have to talk about me. So as an introvert, we live in the prison of our own minds the majority of the time. But when I'm thinking about you, I'm not thinking about me. And it changed my life.
Whoa. Okay. So, how long did it take you to learn how to do it?
That's kind of a trick question because you can learn one feature today and immediately put it to use. So it's like, how did you get good? It's kind of like learning to cook. You add one ingredient, then you learn to add another one, then you learn to add another one. So you can create a meal with one ingredient. You just make better meals as you go.
Mhm.
So the reason I teach eyebrows whenever I meet anyone is because you can see eyebrows from across the room and eyebrows you can get feedback on. Now, a really interesting point, I'm going to do this a lot, so pardon me, but I mentioned before, I'm a total book nerd. So in this book called The Like Switch, It's written by an former FBI agent who he was over the behavioral analysis unit, and he taught agents how to flip people to spy against their own country. And what they talk about in the book is instinctively, when a stranger enters the room, the first thing we do is we look at their eyebrows to see, are they raised like recognition, like, oh, hey, you're a friend, or they squinted like a foe. And so that was one of the other reasons I always like to teach eyebrows, because we instinctively look at eyebrows from across the room. But you can learn by the time people listen to this podcast today, they can be dangerous in that they walk out of the room, they instantly know how to put it into use, but it's just one feature. And there's 250 different combinations when you put all the features together. So it's kind of one of those, you never really stop learning it, but you can start using it immediately.
All right. Well, I mean, I think it's obvious we got to segue right into this.
Sure.
My eyebrows, my right eyebrow goes up higher than my left.
Yes.
I'll be interested to see what you say about that. And it's been like
Uh-huh.
that. I mean, I've gone back as far as I can remember. I always say I think it's because I got bit by a dog when I was 2 and something happened. I don't really
Yeah.
know. But okay. So what
Yeah.
do you think about my eyebrows?
So eyebrows height is related to how long it takes you to make a decision. So here's the crazy part. We talk about facial features all the time, but we haven't been taught why we say those phrases. So when we talk about two types of humor, there's highbrow humor and lowbrow humor. Highbrow humor is where a comedian tells a joke and you have to think about it for a minute and then you laugh. Lowbrow humor is physical comedy, Jackass, Three Stooges, Charlie Chaplin, where when we see it, we immediately laugh. So the higher the eyebrow is, it's how much longer somebody takes to make a decision. So what is eyebrow height? Anything lower than a finger is considered low. So if like my eyebrow is in here, it'd be low. And if it's above, then it's high. So you have a high eyebrow. Now you asked, why is it higher on one side than the other? There's two sides to everyone's face. It doesn't matter, male, female, where in the world you're born, right-handed, left-handed, you name it. The two different sides are we have a personal side and a professional side. And that's why we say the phrase, well, I'm a different person at home than I am at work. Well, that can be reflected on your face as well. In your instance, if I say, hey, are you married? It's a personal question. A wedding ring goes on the left hand. So this would be the personal side because it's a personal question I'd be asking you. So for you, you mentioned earlier, your right eyebrow is the one that's actually higher. So what that means is in your business life, you like a little more time before you make a decision compared to your personal life. So we can be completely symmetrical where we look the same on both sides, or like you, our features can deviate just slightly. And so the higher eyebrow side is where you need more time before you make a decision. It has nothing to do with intellect. It doesn't say you're smarter or dumber. It just says, I don't like making rush decisions. Give me a little more time to think through it. Now, if you see someone whose eyebrow is literally sitting on top of their eye, the longer you talk and you haven't let them make a decision, the more you lose them. So that's
Mm.
how when you're talking to someone, you can look at them and go, someone like yourself has a higher eyebrow, going to want more information before you pull the trigger. Somebody with a lower eyebrow makes decisions that much faster.
That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And,
Okay.
and that's just eyebrow height. So here's the original book that I learned from. It was called The Power of Face Reading. He's got an updated version called this was amazing face reading. The updated version is called The Power of Face Reading.
And his
There is
name's
just
what? Mac Full. What is that? Mac.
Fulfer.
Okay.
Fulfer. Yeah. And I'll put up a QR code at the end that they can find all the books. But you
Yeah.
can see every single feature means something. But if you're not there to color it with them and study with it, then it's hard to learn the features. So that's why I say it's kind of a trick question. But even with just eyebrows alone, I'll show you right in here. So there's 1 page, 2 pages, 3, 4, 5 pages worth of stuff on just
Okay.
eyebrows alone.
Okay. And I remember because I was actually on Amberly's mastermind call. I like to pop in there with her.
Oh,
She's a
yes.
friend of mine. You were talking about the direction of eyebrows. So like if they point or so can you
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that or maybe how it relates to my eyebrows?
Sure. So the way to look at eyebrows is there's three basic shapes. There's straight eyebrows, get straight to the point. Here, let's use for people who can see. So straight eyebrows would be like this. I don't know, is that showing up? It's probably too bright. Okay. Well, straight eyebrows are straight across. When you see straight eyebrows on someone, facts, figures, data, get straight to the point. Now, what's funny is we've been taught this about people our entire life. So if you're a Star Trek fan and you've ever seen Spock, what does Spock have? Straight eyebrows.
Right.
Then there's angled eyebrows like I have. Angled eyebrows are, what's my angle? Help me understand it, include me in the process. Once I understand it, then I can learn to help other people. And then there's rounded eyebrows. Rounded eyebrows, think about the people around them. So when you look at someone, you can immediately go, okay, I have a story to tell or I have a product to sell. It doesn't matter what it is. And I look at their eyebrows and I go, straight eyebrows, keep it short, sweet, straight to the point. If it's angled eyebrows and I'm selling them something, help them understand what's their angle, help them understand your product, your service, you name it. Then they can help others. And if it's a rounded eyebrow, make it about how the others benefit immediately and they benefit second. So you can just look at people and immediately start thinking, I know what I have or what I want to do. If I want to go on vacation, dinner, it doesn't matter what it is. We're all always trying to sell someone on something else. But it's egotistical of me to think you think like I do. So instead, what I go is, okay, I have angled eyebrows, so I want to know what's my angle. You have more rounded eyebrows, so that I would say, for you, it's how do other people benefit first and yourself second. So that's how you would change things from how do I want to say it to how would you best understand it. And that's where the real power of decoding facial features comes from is if I keep saying everything in only the way that I speak, it's like going to another country and demanding that they speak English. The better way to do it is you attempt to learn to speak their language, then they try to speak yours. And it's the exact same thing with faces.
All right. So you do the eyebrows. What would be the next big thing that you would look at in somebody?
Eyelid. And so, oddly enough, you guys are good examples. So, for people who don't know, you have an audience member who's sitting in there as well.
Yep.
So, when she came over, the first thing I noticed is she has very full upper eyelids. So, if you've read the book, The Five Love Languages, there is time and attention. People who have fuller lids, I like to say the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. So they like to do things with other people. And that's where the five love languages, time and attention comes in. So if you see someone, I don't have a lot of eyelid. Now I do because the way I'm looking at the camera, but normally if you're looking at me, you won't see a lot of eyelid. So I'm fine doing things by myself. If other people join me, it's a bonus. But if somebody has fuller eyelids, they love to do things with other people and they'll do things by themselves, but it's not what they prefer. So that's the other thing I look for. If they have fuller eyelids, then I use inclusive language like, well, once we get going, let's get started here. Why don't we go do this? I start using we language because then I'm learning to speak their language because I think in terms of I. Hey, I'm going to go run this errand. Do you want to go with me? Is how I adjust from what I want to do to include them in the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's looking, that's the number two is how full is their eyelid?
I can't tell because I can't see my that close up. What are
Well,
my
okay.
eyelids?
Sure. So you want to have some fun here? We didn't
Yeah.
talk about this before, but it's a little bit easier for your audience to see. And we'll keep talking about it because I know this is auditory also. But you actually have a
And
little bit
I'll
of
put this up. You know what? I've just decided Brian's episode is going to be the one that I finally put up on YouTube and get
right.
started on that because I've been saying it. So there you go. He just helped me do something that I've
Move
been needing
past
to
that
do. So
hurdle, right?
I'm going to upload it to just so everybody can see. How about that?
Sure. Can you make it that I can share screen?
Yep.
All right. Let's see here. Do share screen. Not yet. Can you make me? I may have to be co-host. I don't remember.
Let me see. Oh, because I'm sharing. Wait, no.
No.
Hold on. Hold on. I can do this. I think it's I. Okay, so how do I make you a co-host?
I think if you right click on me, like the three dots, it'll say make co-host.
Where would the three dots be?
Let me see here because I have you pinned, so I have to unpin you real fast so I can try to do it.
Okay. Oh,
All right, so
you
upper
mean
right
on the
hand corner.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah. If not, we can do it. I can still do it without you being on here. But let's
Okay.
see.
Well, we got to be able to
Mhm.
do this. Let's
So you
see.
should be able to go to the upper right hand corner of my picture and a blue box with three dots should appear.
Okay.
And then I believe it says that you can make me co-host.
Bear with us, people. You're listening.
Let's see. Can
It says
I?
view, it says speaker,
Right.
gallery, immersive, follow hosts video order, hide self view, hide non video participants, show meeting timers, and full screen.
Okay. Well, we can always record another one. I can send you the picture afterwards. But looking at your own face, what you can do is pin
Oh, hold
yourself.
on. I got it.
Got
Multiple
it?
hosts can share simultaneous. You should be able to share now.
All right, there we go. Okay, so I snuck this picture when you weren't looking.
Oh my gosh.
But I did it on this one on purpose because I wanted to show a few things. And then I'm going to show a different picture of you. But what we'll talk about is if I was looking at your face, what are the things that would stand out to me? So here, we're going to go each arrow at a time. We'll get rid of them while we're talking. I'm definitely going to cover the cheeks. Good, strong chin. We're going to cover this line right here. I'll make that one a little bit darker so people can see it. And we're going to talk about your nose because it is a good nose for two reasons right here. Okay.
Wow.
So this is just a quick picture, and I'm going to have you take a smiling picture in a second because there's something different I'll show you too. But when we see the pictures, it's kind of what we talked about before. So you have higher eyebrows here, right? So higher eyebrows give you more time to make a decision. So when we get rid of those, so when you see a high eyebrow, it's like we talked about before. If you were to stick a finger between right here, between the eye and the eyebrow, would it be higher or lower than one finger? So I would say high eyebrow for you. Then next, as you can see the arrow here, you have the fuller lids. So I would use we things, or if we were going to do something, I would invite you to go because you have this area right here, which is a fuller upper eyelid. So I would use we language with you. And only you know this about you, but if have you read the Five Love Languages, the book?
It's been so long ago, but
Sure.
yes.
So really there's five basic ones. There's time and attention. There is acts of service, gift giving, physical touch, and words of affirmation. Um, time and attention, physical touch, and words of affirmation are all, you can see them on the face. So three of the five, over 50% of the five love languages are visible on the face. And I can explain where all those will be located. But so the first one right here, because you have fuller eyelids on both sides, that's the time and attention. So you like doing things with other people versus doing things alone. Now, what's interesting though is along with that, you have a very strong nose ridge right here. So we can think I'm rigid about my work environment. I want to work at my pace and in the control of how I spend my time working. That's reflected right here in our nose.
You pegged me. I
Now,
had a really, really hard time working at an office like 9 to 5. Like I did not do well in that
uh-huh.
situation.
I was the same way because to me it was about productivity, not time on the clock.
Yep.
But I liked being in sales on that side because I'd go and visit customers, not
And
clock in, clock out.
that's when I found my own happiness was I started doing outside sales. I sold
Hmm.
and I could make my own schedule. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Go ahead.
yes. This part right here, when we can see your nostrils subconsciously, we think she's got air to share, meaning that you'll listen to us talk and that you're up for listening people come up. So if you ever wonder why do people come up and talk to you and tell you their whole life story, there's two features for it. Number one is you have see how your cheeks right here come and round out. So when we have cheeks that the largest part rounds out on this side of our face, those are called healer cheeks. And so that is every book we've ever seen where there's a caregiver in the book that's drawn, they all have those big cheeks like that. So you add that with the upturned nose right here, and that's you're up for listening to what people are going to say. Subconsciously, people think she's got air to share and she's going to listen to me. So that's why people feel very comfortable coming and talking to you, is because you have those two features that are there that says, I'm going to take care of other people. So let me get rid of those so we
Okay.
can.
That is genius. Because you wouldn't know that about me. My husband's like, he'll know someone for 10 years and I'll
Mhm.
meet them and literally like in 10 minutes. I tell John stuff about like, oh, they bartended in Maui in 19. He gets in the car,
Uh-huh.
he goes, how did you know all that? Like, I
Uh,
don't know. Everybody always tells me. Yeah.
Well, that's this line right here, and I'll change the color because it's kind of hard to see. But this line right here is called a talk line. So that's how you get to know people is through conversation right here. And then you've got a good strong chin right here. So we don't have to walk on eggshells around you. So those are the things that your face says about you. Now, there's other things that on everybody's face is a little bit different. And like we talked about a little bit earlier, is people can be a different person on each side of their face. So if you're pretty symmetrical on majority of your face, other than we talked about one eyebrow slightly higher than the other. But if you ever were to draw a line like this down someone's face, you would look and say, is it the same? So I've seen people where there's no eyelid at work, but there's a big eyelid at home. So again, this side here is the personal side, and this is the business or professional side.
Now I have a question because my
Sure.
mouth is lopsided. Like my teeth in my
Uh-huh.
mouth are lopsided. Does that mean anything?
It's because yes. So what it is the side that's larger is the side that you feel more comfortable talking about. So if it's larger at work, it's because you're completely fine talking about work stuff quite a bit. And then if it's more reserved on your personal side, it's like, well, my personal life's a little more me. Now, what's interesting is you have a good upper and lower lips. Some people will have a very flat upper lip here and a very full lower lip. That says you can ask me about anything work related or external, but don't ask me personal questions. And so we say the phrase when somebody's going through a hard time and they're sharing too much, we say, hey, keep a stiff upper lip. That's where that phrase comes from. Because we see if somebody's got a thinner or stiff upper lip, we know not to ask them a lot of personal questions. Now, that means that they can open up after they feel comfortable. But if you ask too many questions right out of the gate, people will shut down. So you can find
Okay.
people that are completely different.
Well, so now you talked about my facial structure. You talked
Mhm.
about the lines on my face.
Yes.
What if I get plastic surgery? Say that I go and I get a neck lift and because I always talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm too afraid to do it, but like I lift all this stuff up. What
Sure.
happens then?
So our faces, there's 43 muscles under the face. Our faces are constantly adjusting. And so all that you can see is where's someone today. So it's funny you say that. See this little device here? Do you remember when the Jawser sizer was a big deal
Oh
like
my
a year
God,
or two ago?
yes. Yeah.
Okay. That was there because the repetitive stress of biting down to that would create a jawline on people. And so our faces are constantly adjusting over time. I have a picture of me at 18 versus 38 that I show in my presentations. And I used to have straight eyebrows. My ears stuck out more. What else? I didn't have heart lines. So this little line that's kind of like a backslash in my ear, that's a heart line. So if you see it on someone, you have to go, uh-oh, okay, they need to keep an eye on their cardiovascular health. But our faces are constantly changing over time. Matter of fact, here, let me just show you because it's not fair that I looked at your face and you don't have to look at mine. I don't want to be mean like that. So let me do this. All right, let me go to Zoom and we'll go back to share and let me know if I'm talking too long.
No, you're doing great.
All
This
right.
is fun.
Okay. So can you see that one?
Oh, Brian.
Yeah.
How cute are you?
So if you look how much my ears used to stick out versus they're closer to my head over time. So ears are like wind drag on a plane. The farther they stick out, the less you go with the flow. So I was a feisty little kid, but as I got into corporate America for 20 years, my ears went back over time. Then my next one here, you can see I used to have straight eyebrows. Now they're angled. Now this one's harder to see on people, but when I point it out, it's going to be blatantly obvious. Look how much my eyes used to angle down when I was a kid versus now they've evened up and have actually gone upward angle. That's the
Wow.
biggest one that can tell you how do you present information to people. So when people have a down angled eye, they're worried about the downside of things. So as a kid, I was worried. I was raised with very loving parents who are like, hey, it may not work out. What's your backup plan? So I was always thinking about what could go wrong versus what could go right. Well, as I got both personal and professional success, my eyes evened up over time. And now if people come with too much negativity right away, I'm just like, oh, I'm done with them. But that's an example of what we can look like. And it's based on these muscles under our face. So the mind creates movement, movement creates muscle. So our faces are constantly changing over time. Now, I don't want to ignore the question that you had, but what's funny is when I show this slide, is you asked about plastic surgery, right? And so that is something we talk about is when you have plastic surgery done, it's affect versus effect. And that is you can change something on your face and it will change how people react to you. But here's the funny thing. You've been doing it for a very, very long time anyway with makeup. So with makeup, you choose what features on your face you want to enhance. And a
Mm,
very, very easy analogy is like when kids get their face painted, they feel like they become what their face got painted as, and the entire people that they run into all treat them like that person. Makeup is no different.
interesting.
So yeah,
Wow. All right, I want to keep going. What
yeah,
else?
sure. So I'm gonna get a picture of you smiling now. So let me go back to the
Okay.
other app so I can do it because there was an important part about when you smile. So go ahead, do a big smile for us. All right. Okay. So let me go back to sharing this particular one. I need to go to you
Maybe you'll see how
here.
lopsided my teeth are. It's
See,
a
the funny thing
thing.
is, We are always all worried about what we see, and half the people can't see it when we're here anyway. Right. Now, the most important part of the smile, and I'm going to zoom in on it, so I apologize if it blurs it out. Right here, see how we can see part of gums when we smile?
Yes.
So that is a sign of when somebody who's in, they give their all. And so when you're talking to someone and you see they smile, those are people who don't hold back when they're there to support you. So when I go up on stage, I look for two different things. I look for people who have rounded eyebrows because I know they think about other people and they're going to support me. And I look for people when they smile, I can see a hint of gums because
Wow.
that's what that feature says. Look, when we're under attack or we feel anything like that, what do? We show our teeth, like, because that's the animal part of us. But people who smile so big that we can see a hint of gums, they don't hold back. So when they're there to support you, they give you their all. That's why I wanted a picture of you not smiling before and then smiling afterwards, because I saw that earlier. Now, here's what's interesting. It's really on the business side, which your business is helping take care of people. So you see more of it on this side than you do on this side of your face.
Hmm. Interesting.
Hmm. So it's all these little things. It's just features tell us, or sorry, tell other people how to talk to us. Here's the really crazy part. This was part of the academic system until Henry VIII said, I don't like the idea that beggars and vagabonds can use this against their fellow man. And he had it pulled out of the academic system. So this used to be taught in schools because it goes all the way back to the Greeks. Aristotle wrote about it. Now, is it 100%? Nope, not at all. Is it high 90s? Yeah. And you asked earlier, like, how did I know when it became effective? Is I would go out and I started getting into sales. I became a corporate trainer. So once I learned all this, it kind of helped me because I got out of my bubble a little bit. Then I became public or corporate trainer. After that, sales engineer, then account manager. And I kept using this. But the reason the company's called Subtle Skills is I was afraid to tell anybody what I was doing. Because you don't walk in, you to go, read a body language book, right? But the same thing is people trust body language only because so many books have been written about it by like FBI people, ATF, you name it. But face reading is taught to attorneys for jury consulting. It's taught to authors and artists for character development. So if you think about every book you ever read as a kid, let me stop sharing here so we can talk. Every book you ever read as a kid, they didn't draw pictures or have pictures of every character. Instead, they described them through two things: their actions and their facial features. So we've been taught our entire life through books first, then fairy tales, cartoons, movies, television, on how to understand people based on their facial features. So, what does every villain have? Angled eyebrows, downturned nose, pointed chin. Does that mean you're evil? No, but if you have those three features, I'm going to pay attention. I have angled eyebrows and I used to have straight eyebrows like you saw. When I became the corporate trainer, what does a trainer have to do? I have to learn the material first so then I can teach it to others. So the angled eyebrow is, what's my angle? Well, I have to understand the material. Then I can teach it to others. But if you had rounded eyebrows, then you think about other people first and how you benefit second.
Now, you said something. You said the downturned nostrils and what
Mhm.
you say, straight chin,
Pointed chin.
pointed chin.
Yes.
Now,
And
okay, so I know that the upturned nose means that you have air. So you want
right.
to you
You're
want to hear what
approachable.
people say, right?
Yes.
But you're saying, but
Downturn nose is like
okay,
blocking the air. The air is only for me. So what it is those are people that when they say, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, the ends justify the means. So their goal is more important than how they reach their goal. So when you see a very downturned nose by itself, I'd pay attention. But if I saw that and then a pointed chin, so pointed chins are almost like you stab someone with your chin because we say take one on the chin. So if I saw angled eyebrow, they want to know what's in it for them. Number two, they're only focused on their goal. And then number three, they'll chisel their way to get to whatever they want. So
interesting.
if I saw all three of those, does it make them an evil person? No, but I'd pay attention. Now, here's the interesting thing. While it's used in a lot of movies for villains, what do sometimes do CEOs have to do? They have to make really hard decisions that's
Mhm.
for the good of the company, even though it hurts some people. And what
Right.
you'll see is a CEO who comes in and just strikes people right off the bat and doesn't even think twice about it. They'll usually have some of those features.
Interesting. So
Mhm.
it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It's
Mm-mm.
just the way they operate in the world.
Absolutely. We're all the big mistake that we're taught is the golden rule is good, but it's not universally good.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is they say treat people the way you want to be treated. Well, you may want to be treated completely different from how I want to be treated. I'm a visual person. I don't have a lot of eyelids. So I think in terms of pictures, I want to send memes and things of that nature. I was married to someone who was auditory, who wanted to have discussions and listen to things. So she loved listening to music. I wanted to watch TV or a movie, you know. So there is no right or wrong, but you find boundaries of how can you do things together. So we came up with a system that when we went to the store, if she's going to the store, I tell her the things I need. If I'm going to the store, you better text me what you want because I'm visual, she's auditory. So we just learn to adjust to things.
I love that. You know, it makes me think, I don't know what show it was or where I learned this, but they meaning it was a show about people's facial features, but it
Mhm,
had something more to do with when someone was lying, their
mhm.
eyes would go one way or
Yes.
another. Do you know anything about that? And does that have
Yeah.
anything to do with what you're talking about?
No. So what you're talking about is, well, yes, I know what it's about. No, it's different. What you're talking about is eye accessing cues, and that's based on NLP or neuro linguistic programming. And the belief in that is when you ask someone a question, depending on where they look, determines looking up as visual, looking side to side is listening, and looking down, I can't remember, is like creating or construction. So the theory behind that is, and it's funny, I just talked about this on Brad Lee's podcast the other day. There's a belief that, oh, if you look left, then it means you're lying, or if you look right, you're
Right.
creating whatever. However,
Right.
that's not the full truth to it. It's just like anything else. In body language, there's what's known as a baseline. So what you have to do is you have to ask someone a recall question. Like if I said, hey, what color is the first, what color was your first car? And so, depending on which way you look to recall
Uh-huh.
something,
Uh-huh.
that's your recall. So then, when I'm talking to you, I pay attention. I go, okay, she looked to the left. Every time she's looking to the left, she's going to recall. But if she's looking to the right, she's going to create. Now, the challenge with that is not everybody has the best memory. So if they can't remember, then they may try and think like, okay, what kind of car was it? And what was the interior? And so they may be creating a new representation because they can't recall the old memory. And that's
Mhm.
why that one has been kind of it's one of those it can be beneficial, but don't make it as 100% because it's not. But you definitely need to start with a baseline. And in body language, it's the same thing. If somebody starts and their arms are crossed, don't take it as a bad thing. Maybe their back hurts. Maybe they're cold. There's reasons for it. So in body language, it's how fast they cross their arms. That's the challenge versus just crossing it. It can be bad, but it can not be bad at the exact same time. So a lot of these skills come into context. Now, what I love about face reading, and that's what it really is, it's face reading. But as soon as you see that, people go, "Ooh, can you read palms?" And I'm like, "No, I can't." So it's a proactive skill. So I can go and look up people on LinkedIn ahead of time before I ever meet with them. And I think, okay, I know what I want to say, but am I learning to speak their language? So I'll go and do that all the time. Matter of fact, a company just paid me to go out and look at a prospect that they were going to do a presentation for. And I said, okay, now show me your presentation. And I'm like, this is completely wrong for the person that you're presenting to. So, what ideally a sales company would want to do is have three different types of presentations. Are they, and just using eyebrows alone, are they straight eyebrows? Well, that's a short presentation, straight to the point. If it's angled eyebrows, help them understand how when they learn it or buy your product, then they can help other people. Or if it's rounded eyebrow, it focus on their customers first and how their customers and coworkers are going to win. So I teach as a door-to-door sales. So I speak at door-to-door con every year. And those people have seconds when somebody answers the door to not get the door slammed in their face, not get a gun pulled on them, or not get the cops called. And so they have to instantly do it. So it can be both a reactive skill like that. But what I like to do a lot of times is I'll go and look up someone ahead of time and I'll find a picture here. Like, since we're talking about Sam, let me show this picture. So I want to go here and reshare. I'll show you one more picture real fast. Okay, so you can see Sam. So every one of these features tells me something about Sam. And for example, here he's got, see how he has the eyebrows you can't really see? Those are called chameleon eyebrows. That's a
Right.
consensus builder because you have to get closer to them before you can even see what their eyebrows are. But he has low, straight eyebrows. So get to the point as soon as possible. Now, what's really interesting about Sam is I went and spent a half a day with him in his house in Utah. We recorded a podcast, we did some training, and then he put that into his book. about how he uses it now. So you can see here, there's my name, companies, he talks about eyebrows, lip size, all these things have a weight on who we are. But that's because I taught him how to look up someone on LinkedIn ahead of time. If you know who you're going to meet with, and figure out, is my message built for me or for them? And that's how this is really a cool skill in that it's proactive. Is now when I walk in, I don't feel like I'm meeting someone cold. I feel like I'm catching up with an old friend. And because people can tell you make it about them and not about you, it makes a world of difference.
That is just fascinating. Do you give any kind of lectures or
Mhm.
course? Do you
Yes.
teach on this?
All the above. So I love speaking because, like we talked about before, I want to go and meet people. So keynote speaking is one of my favorite things. I've been on stage with Bradley, Greg Reed, Alex Hermosi, you name it. That's my favorite thing to do. I've got a virtual training. What I do sell, this is one of my favorite things, I think, the flashcards,
Okay.
because the book is good, but the book is overwhelming. And I did the book first, but when I got flashcards, I could go and find a feature and go, okay, well, what does that feature mean? Oh, there's gum or something stuck on it. That was impressive. But I could find the feature, and then I could, if I couldn't recall what it was, I flipped it over, and then it would tell me, what does that mean about someone? So now I call, these are my mentors. And so when I talk at a talk line, that's what he calls a gab line, but it's the same thing that we pointed out on you earlier. So natural talker, and it was on your professional side. So I think the flashcards are a no-brainer for people. The book is good, but if you're not with Mac to sit and study and highlight with him, it's too much too fast. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book right now, and I'm going to do a 3-part series of it because there needs to be a basics that people can put into use first. Then once they get the basics, then they can move on. As much as I love the guy and he changed my life, I still have lunch with him once a month. This is too much all at once, and it
Mhm.
will overwhelm people, and they'll put the book down.
Right. I mean, you'd have to really be immersed in it to
Yes.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
need feedback, because how do you know what you saw is correct? And so that's why I
Mhm.
launched coaching. Was I want people to go watch the video course, and then let's sit together for half an hour and have them find pictures of what they think the feature looks like. And then you can help them go, yes, this is right, or no, that's wrong. Because not everybody can travel to Texas and do one-on-one in a group room like that. And that's what makes a difference. It's like any other skill that's out there. Books are good, courses are better, in person is best. And that doesn't matter if it's you go to something I'm speaking at, or you bring me into your company, corporation, you name it. Like I'm speaking in Canada next month in July, and it's going to be for chiropractors. Why? Because they have so much to overcome when somebody walks in the
Mhm.
door, unless they have met someone who has had just a phenomenal time with a chiropractor. Sorry, chiropractors, if you're listening, people go, oh, this is quackery. I don't know if I believe in it. And it's not a cheap price point. But
Mhm.
chiropractic can change your life, get people off medication, all kinds of stuff. I'm not a doctor, but I've have friends who go to chiropractors,
Mhm.
and it's made a world of difference. So I'm speaking with a company that he owns a chiropractor studio, but the company that he also studies under just bought out Book Yourself Solid, and they're teaching people how to expand their practice. And I'm being brought in to talk about, how do you help people feel comfortable? How do you help close more business? And how do you keep employees? Because that's the other thing, is we're talking about this in a sales capacity because people always want to know how can they use it. But here's the thing, it's a business skill that has real life application. So it's not always about selling somebody. So for example, we talked about, if there's, or actually we didn't talk about with you, but if there's a line right here, that's that verbal affirmation line that we talked about from the
And
5
that
love
that
languages.
line's under the bottom
Yes.
lip.
Yes, below the lip and above the chin. So let me see if I can find a picture of someone, and I'll show you an example of it. Um, do I have? Give me 1 second, because I wasn't thinking about this when we were talking about. But if you have that in your employees, those are people who are praise above pay. So don't get me wrong,
Ah,
everybody wants money, but sometimes verbal affirmation goes farther than it
yes.
does for
It
someone that.
really, I find that with, yes, there are people they just want to hear they're doing a good job.
Exactly. I used to work with a guy that he did something amazing. I'm like, oh, we should get this guy a raise. And somebody said, actually, you know what? He would appreciate a handwritten thank you or an email from the CEO or something. And they were right. They were absolutely right. So I'm
Mhm.
just looking an affirmation line. I know I've got one somewhere, so I'm just looking for it real
That's
fast so I can
okay.
show you.
That's okay. So you're out speaking on this, you're teaching it. Ordering the cards would be a good thing. That's going to be the thing I
Absolutely.
do. And then do you have any kind of YouTube or website where people can go and kind of cross reference?
Yes, everything is at getthecheatsheet.com. That's a redirect, but I realized nobody could spell subtle. So I'll pop up a QR code here in a minute that people can scan also. But subtle skills is everything. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. Instagram, a few videos went viral, so that's at 122 or 121,000 followers. YouTube's smaller, Facebook is smaller, and I'm just getting into LinkedIn right now. So let me show you the verbal affirmation line on someone. All right, so I'm going to zoom in on this person so you can see it. See this line right here?
Yes.
That's a verbal affirmation line. So if you see that on anyone, sincere verbal compliments go a long way. So let's say that
So
it's
for somebody listening and you haven't quite got to my YouTube that I'm going to be uploading, it is the line in between your bottom lip and your chin. If you
yes,
have one of those, if someone has one of those, they like verbal compliments.
sincere verbal compliments. So not a
Here.
hey, thanks. Hey, thank you for dinner. It was amazing. In the more specific the compliment, the better. Now, let me give you a great example. When I say this, it sounds funny. People cry on stage a lot when they come up, and it's not because I said anything that was mean, but it's the first time they feel seen by
Mm.
someone else in a very, very long time. So if somebody has rounded eyebrows, then they think about other people first. If they have a flatter upper lip, they don't talk about all the things they're doing for other people. And if they have that deep line right there, I will say on stage, I'll say, can I share something personal? They'll say yes. I said, if you don't start letting people see what you're doing for them, you're never going to get the thank you want and you crave. And I've had people burst into tears. And I used to step away. And because I thought, this is going to look bad. But what I realized is you're sitting in the moment with people that they feel seen for the first time in a long time. And so now I just sit right there with them because I'm not backing away. I'm not afraid of it. But if I see this on someone, and I'll kind of highlight it in here, but if you see this on someone and you don't give them thanks, they don't hear everything that you do. So you could give them a raise, you can give them a title, and that's still important, but you're not doing the one thing that makes them happy. And that's what the book, The Five Love Languages, is about is there's five different love languages, and you got to figure out what makes you happy, but how can you also focus on others at the same time?
Wow. I want to go back to this before we end. And then
Mhm.
I want to talk to you. Remind me to go back to the five love language because we're going to have you on the podcast again
Mhm.
and we're going to segue into relationships. But so I'm glad you brought up the flat upper lip
Mhm.
because I kind of interpreted it when you first said it as like if somebody has a flat upper lip, they aren't open at all. But no, you're just saying that that means they are not as likely to be open right away. So it's
Correct.
not a bad thing.
Not at all. It just
Yeah.
means
Okay.
so for example, I love Janine Driver. Her and I do a course called Read the Face, Read the Room. So
Okay.
she's a former ATF agent who wrote body language books. This one is What does your body language say about you? So it's called You Say More Than You Think. And the QR code I'll put up in that Get the Cheat Sheet lists all the books we're talking about.
Okay.
But she will get up on stage and she will share and she will overshare. And then she gets off stage. And if somebody walks to her and starts asking a lot of personal questions, she'll go, Why do you need to know that? And so what it means is that they will share, but they just don't share openly with everyone. But once you're in the circle of trust or you're
Uh-huh.
past that wall, oh, they'll share all day long. It's just not their default mechanism to share. So they're a little more stoic at first, but
Got it.
once you get to know them, they're amazing people. But some people share right away, some people wait. And you were asking about plastic surgery. The number one plastic surgery right now is lip enhancement. And nobody really knew why, but that's the entire reason why is because when we have fuller lips, people think we're more approachable. And people go, that's BS. Find older ladies like in their 80s or 90s who draw with lipstick larger lips than they actually have. Why do they do that? Because subconsciously we know larger lips mean that that's someone who's more open to talking. So the opposite of that is let's say that you were in a horrible relationship at work or at home where you're not allowed to have a voice or opinion in body language. It's called lip suppression. You start doing this. And for the people listening, it's putting your lips together and like trying to close your mouth on purpose. Well, when you do that, lip suppression will actually lead to a decrease in your upper lip over time. So you'll see someone who leaves a relationship and you'll say, you look like a new person. So they could be at a job they hated, they left a bad marriage, whatever it is. It's because they're smiling more and they're allowed to talk more. And so things will change over time. Now, it's not going to be they broke up today or left their job today and on Monday they look like a new person, but our face isn't muscles, just like anything else. And as those muscles get moved, they change the facial structure of our face and our features. And that's why when you look at people, it's like looking at a map of where have they been, are the lines or the wrinkles, and where are they today is just where's their features at. So you saw the picture of me as a kid, eyes angled very down. Now they've evened up. Well, I didn't have plastic surgery done, or I have angled eyebrows now. I didn't go and get my eyebrows done. You can, but that's how my own face changed over time.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go back to and look at some of my pictures of me when I was younger. We should
Uh-huh.
love to do that. All right, so Brian, this has
Yes.
been amazing. Have we missed anything, or is there anything you think that we still need to cover that we haven't?
Now, whoops, went back when the question you asked earlier was where can everybody find me? It's basically
Yes,
I'm subtle skills everywhere. So
I was going to go to
Instagram,
that. Yep.
Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. Like I said, Instagram has the biggest following. And then that QR code there, or if they go to getthecheatsheet.com, will list all the books we talked about today. So flashcards, the books I learned from, body language books, 5 love languages, you name it.
Getthecheatsheet.com.
Mhm.
Getthecheatsheet.com.
Yes.
And then we're going to have you back on. I wrote a best-selling book called Relationship Grit. So
Mhm.
um, I have that. And then I'll reread the love languages so we can talk about relationships.
Absolutely. And what we can do is for the door-to-door courses that I do, I
Yeah.
actually take pictures of couples and talk about how would you talk to them differently. So we could throw up pictures of couples because a lot of times when they're knocking on door to door, both people answer the phone and make the decision for the family. So what we can do is go over some of that PowerPoint and look at the different faces and go, how would you talk to him? How would you talk to her? Are they the same? Are they different? And it would be a good learning exercise for people as well. Because one of the things you said beautifully earlier is there is no right or wrong feature. It's just what do we have in common and where do we differ? And when we differ, how do we meet in the middle?
That's great. This is a great tool.
Yes. Changed my life. Absolutely changed my life.
Well, I'm going to use it and I hope it changes my life.
Oh, it
All
will.
right. Brian Gaulke,
Yes.
Subtle Skills. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for coming on, Kathryn For Real.
Thank you for having me.